Good evening. Thank you all very much for coming and to our second community conversation. It's one of four. This is second of four. So your presence here means that you have a great interest in the future of Fauquier County, because what we're trying to do is decide on a strategic vision for who we are going forward as a county. So your input is invaluable. I would like to say a couple housekeeping things. One, if you haven't gone to the website yet, please do so, and also please take the survey. I did it yesterday. It took me 4 minutes, so if it took me 4 minutes, most of you can probably do it in 2, so I'm just saying. But please go take the survey, because this is all the kind of input that's going to help us improve the process. So I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Kimberly, but I also would like to give a real shout out to the Community Development Office. They have done a wonderful job putting these meetings together, getting it out on Facebook for the community, setting up a really dynamic website, and keeping everything moving along. And we are really appreciative of the work that they've done on behalf of the county. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mary Lee. I'd also like to point out that we have 2 other board members in the room. We have Rick Gerhardt from the Cedar Run District and Chris Butler from Lee District. Thank you for joining us tonight. So, a number of you were probably here at the last workshop, and a number of you are probably new, and you're asking yourself, well, what is this all about? Why are you here? Well, this is indeed about our future. It's about where we could be, it's about where we should be, and it's about where we want to be in the next 30 years. And what do we do to make that happen? So, why are we doing it in this way? Why are we having these conversations? We all are aware of all the different forces that are out there affecting Fauquier County, affecting us personally, affecting how we're going to grow, how changing technology is out there. These forces are coming at us not only internally, but externally. And those forces lead to our future. They will dictate how our future will unfold and how we do business in our lives. So with that, it also will dictate our vision. And we have a vision that is already in place. I will go over that. But all of these things will affect how that vision folds out in the future. So just a couple of basics of what the project's all about. It really is in 2 phases. We have a research phase in which we as staff and the professionals working on the project are identifying trends, we're identifying those constraints and opportunities, and we're trying to then also share those with you. You as the community, we have an advisory committee that's helping us to formulate some of the trends and the issues and questions that we're putting out to you. We also have our website, is another way that we're soliciting input into the process. And after each of the conversations, we're sharing that with our board and planning commission to get their input as well. All of this then comes together in the creation of an action plan. We're calling it Stepping Stones to Our Future. And the idea is that we have a vision, but we want to make sure that what we are doing today will make sure that we realize that vision 30, 40 years from now, that we're still on that same track. This vision actually has not been formalized in these words that long. The Board of Supervisors adopted it this past year, but it's not only the exact words, the idea has been here for the last 50 years. This is the way that the county has operated, and basically the vision says that Fauquier County is a thriving community that honors its natural and cultural resources, agricultural heritage, and rural landscape while building a sustainable economy and promoting outstanding services and growth within defined service districts. What we're doing today is a community process, and part of that process, we're reaffirming and refreshing that vision for the future. We had our first community conversation on May the 17th. We're here today, and today we're going to talk about future opportunities and constraints. Our third workshop is going to be held on September the 21st, and at that time we will talk about what we need to be doing to help to achieve those visions. What kind of stepping stones, actions do we need to take? And coming back again in November with some recommendations, some ideas to get your input again on what those might be. This will culminate in a final action plan in December. So first, I'd like to take a few minutes and just talk a little bit about what we discussed at the May 17th meeting. At that time, we talked about what was going on in Fauquier County, what kinds of conditions, what kind of demographics, what kind of economic profiles were we experiencing, what kind of trends are out there, what kind of things make up Fauquier County today. We also talked about what kind of national trends, global trends were out there that may affect us in the future. Technology, business, lifestyles, the environment. There are many, many trends that are going on outside of what we're seeing day to day. And we had some breakout sessions at the last meeting, which we're going to do again tonight. But these are the things that we heard you say at the first meeting. So when we asked, what forces or trends do you think will most shape the county's future? What you all came back with were first, and these are the top 5 common themes I'm going to present. The first is telecommunications and technology, infrastructure for that, for broadband, for telecommuting. The second one is generational needs and preferences. Service needs. What are the preferences of the elderly, the millennials, young people, and how will those affect us? The third one was environmental challenges and green technology. The availability of water was cited as one of the critical areas, the potential scarcity of that, and also the opportunity for alternative energy and other technologies that we're just barely scratching the surface on today. Agricultural changes are something that we're seeing as a force that will affect us. We have older farmers today. We have, essentially changing technologies. We have a growing agritourism business. We have more of a demand for local and organic products. We also have challenges and opportunities that we're going to be faced from state and regional economy issues, because we have a rising growth in the regional economy, in the Northern Virginia economy, but it's also projected that we have a slow growth in the Virginia economy. So our future is going to, that may imply that our future is going to be strongly influenced by how well we are tied to the economy in the Northern Virginia area. The second question that was asked was, what kind of future do you want for Fauquier County? And of the top theme out of the 5 top ones were, and now we took all of the responses and were able to put them into some groupings because they all had commonalities to it. So it may be that if you were here and put in something and you don't see it addressed, it may be that it found a way into another, to a category. Anyway, the first is managed growth and concentrated development, and essentially that's retaining our quality of life. There was a lot of folks that cited, the way growth is occurring in other counties near us, and and how that diminishes the quality of life. And the intent is to kind of preserve our rural and small town characteristics that we have in Fauquier. Extending business and employment opportunity was I think, critical in determining the kind of future that we had. What was cited was particularly high-valued industries, an opportunity for more people to not only live in Fauquier County, but to live and work in Fauquier County. Vibrant towns and villages. What were suggested were thriving businesses, an eclectic mix of stores and restaurants, sidewalks within our villages and town areas. Preserve the rural areas and open spaces. Now, this is really a corollary to the managed growth and concentrated development. If you have one, you could more easily have the other. And then the last of the themes, it was a strong agricultural economy, whereby we preserve our heritage, we have access to local foods, we have agritourism industries, whereby it's not only one aspect of farming, but it's a much larger industry that can provide economic support to the county. So all of this feedback, I think, goes back to reaffirming that vision that we have. And some of those key words that are in that vision are agricultural, sustainable economy, service districts, growth, thriving. And it just goes on to, I guess, reaffirm the direction that the county's been headed in for a long time. Tonight's conversation, we're going to talk about what are the future obstacles and opportunities for Fauquier County. And these are all related to achieving our vision. Tonight, we're going to have two different presentations. The first is going to talk about obstacles and the second on opportunities. And we're going to then have a breakout session following each of these presentations. You have some handouts that we will be working with during those breakout sessions. We also have a number of facilitators who have name tags on that will help during that process. The presentation on obstacles will be made by Matthew Renborg, and the one on opportunities will be made by Vlad Gravilovic, who are actively working with the county on the project. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Renborg, and he's going to talk about obstacles to achieving our vision in Fauquier.
Good evening. So before we dive into all this information, we just wanted to let you know that it's important to understand that we're going to be covering a lot of different topics and a lot of information this evening. And I think that it could be kind of overwhelming if you're trying to jot down notes on all of this. And so we just wanted to reiterate that these slides are going to be put on the project website immediately following this meeting. So if you want to see further detail about it, you can see it there without having to take down everything this evening. So, as Kimberly mentioned, tonight we're going to be talking about obstacles and opportunities. And when we're talking about, in this case, obstacles, what we're talking about really are the patterns and conditions of development that have occurred in the county and are developing in the county that will really serve as the context, that it's the stage, basically, that these forces and trends that we discussed last time will be acting within. And some of these patterns are going to be very helpful to allow the county to achieve its vision, which we'll discuss in the opportunities section. And some of them will provide some challenges that the community needs to think about strategically in order to think about how to work around them and to overcome them. As Kimberly mentioned, one of the main topics that emerged out of our meeting last time in May was this desire to have managed growth and concentrated development within the county. And one possible obstacle that the county may face in this is the fact that projected growth in the county may exceed the full build capacity of the towns and service districts. And so basically, in the county's current full build scenario, the towns and service districts can accommodate about 26,000 more people than lived in them in 2010. But if you recall from last time, the population projections that statistical agencies have developed for the county are suggesting that we can expect about 24 to 37,000 new residents in the next 20 to 25 years. And so that begs the question of where will all the growth go, and what is an appropriate balance in terms of how much growth should occur in the service districts and how much of it is okay to have occurring within the rural areas of the county. Another potential obstacle is the fact that the projected demand for water supply and for wastewater treatment is greater than the existing utility capacity. So in brief summary, the utility facilities and infrastructure for both of these services is currently insufficient to support the full extent of the projected growth that is expected within the county. And adding on top of that is the fact that the groundwater, which serves as the water supply for the county, is still, the full extent of it is somewhat unknown. It's difficult to know exactly how much groundwater supplies there are. There's a study currently going on that's attempting to draw that out more with greater distinction. But it's a type of water supply that brings with it some uncertainties, and it also is a supply that will change over time with geology and with development. And so there's a question of how much water the county will even have in order to support its developments. Another potential issue is the fact that groundwater quantity and quality can both be diminished by surface developments and activity. And so what this obstacle is referring to is the fact that development on the surface will affect groundwater by increasing runoff. You have more impervious surfaces like pavement and structure, meaning that when rainfall comes, more of it is running off into rivers and streams, and less of it is soaking into the ground to recharge the aquifers underneath. And so you have typically less water in the groundwater, and also the water that is going in is exposed more often to potentially harmful pollutants. And because of the fact that the county's groundwater, or the county's water supply, comes almost exclusively from groundwater that is extracted from wells that are located within the service districts, this means that there are already many different concerns about water contamination, potentially concerns about the quantity of groundwater decreasing with time, and these issues could potentially grow of greater concern as time goes along. Another theme that emerged in our feedback from the last meeting was the desire to see vibrant towns and villages. One potential obstacle to this is the fact that currently there's a limited diversity of housing variety within the county's housing stock. Right now, housing within the county, including within the towns and service districts, is overwhelmingly defined by single-family or single-unit structures. The number of multifamily structures, such as apartments, it's very low, even compared to smaller towns like Warrenton. This lack of diversity has the potential to exclude certain types of people. For some people, a single-family home obviously is a wonderful living situation, but those preferences may change based on age or based on income, lifestyle preferences, physical abilities. And for some people, having smaller living conditions and more dense situations it's more advantageous for them. And so this lack of diversity could potentially restrict the number of people and the types of people that could live here. Another issue is a potential obstacle is the fact that the growing cost of housing relative to the increase of income within the county. So if you look at data from the last 35 years and you adjust it for inflation, you'll see that the median housing prices within Fauquier County have grown significantly, almost doubling over that time, while the median income has remained pretty much stagnant over that period. It's just increased with inflation. And what this means is that families within Fauquier County are forced to spend more and more of their money on housing. which is illustrated by the fact that the percentage of households in the county that spend 30% or more of their income on housing grew from 23% in 2000 to 34% in 2014. And another potential obstacle within the vibrant towns and villages aspect is the limited street connectivity and sidewalk availability in the towns and service districts. Last time, a lot of people mentioned that they would like to have walkable communities within the service districts, the ability to walk from your home to school or your home to stores. And one of the most important features that can allow a community to have this walkability is a connected street network that provides many direct and short routes from one place to another within the community. And if you look right now, the towns in Fauquier, Warrenton, Remington, and the Plains, they all have a relatively high level of connectivity, as you can see in the green figure, which is the town of Warrenton, it's a grid network, basically. On the other hand, the service districts in the county tend to look more like the orange figure, which is a figure taken from New Baltimore, where you have many disconnected streets that end in cul-de-sacs, and they don't connect from one to another. And what this creates are longer travel routes that make walking and biking less practical and less enjoyable. And as a result, just within the community, it can be more difficult to walk. And then another obstacle in terms of vibrant towns and villages is the fact that there is a limited central business and activity area within most of the service districts. And so we're all familiar, of course, with the main street downtowns in Warrenton and in Remington and the Plains. But outside of these towns, Marshall is really the only community in Fauquier County that has that traditional Main Street town center. And the significance of this is just the fact that if a community doesn't have that center, they tend to have more limited opportunities for entertainment and recreation and social interaction. And it tends to diminish that sense of unique place that a lot of people really look for in a community. And that may make the idea of living in a service district less desirable than it would be otherwise. And last within the vibrant towns and villages is the concern that there are significant health issues that are arising within the county, especially among the youth. A recent community health survey identified several different areas of health concern among youth, including diet deficiencies, obesity, depression, and drug use. And these factors not only can increase healthcare costs, but they also potentially serve as obstacles that may limit a person's ability to function effectively as an employee or even as a neighbor within the community, which can, over time, kind of diminish, again, this vibrancy that people seek in the community. All right, the next theme that we were going to briefly touch on is the idea of wanting to see expanding business and employment opportunities within the county. One issue of concern there is the disparity between the workforce skills available in the county and the available employment. And basically what this comes down to is the fact that most of the people who live in Fauquier County work outside of it. 77% work outside of the county, whereas most of the people who work at jobs in the county actually live outside of it. So 60% of the workforce of the county is coming in from other places. And this not only is somewhat inefficient just in terms of movement of people, but it also means that because of the fact that a lot of the residents of the county are highly skilled and work in high-value industries, the county is losing out on potential business revenues that it could acquire if those people had jobs that they could work at within the county itself. Another issue of concern is the fact that broadband access remains limited in many areas of the county. And this is especially the case in Fauquier due to the large areas of the county that are still very rural, and it's just less economical for a lot of the internet providers to be able to deal with the low population density and the geography. But regardless, what this means is that the percentage of population within the county that has access to various high-speed internet technologies such as DSL and fiber and cable, are all significantly lower than the national averages. And as a result, the percentage of the population in the county that has access to even relatively high internet speeds is also notably less than the national average. Another issue is the fact that there are high future levels of congestion that are projected for almost all of the major highways in the county. And so if you look at I-66 and US 17 and 28 and 29, out into the future in 2035 and beyond, all of them are projected to have very high levels of congestion. And this condition will lead to travel delays, which are not desirable for either commuters or for the movement of freight. But it also can result in an increased number of accidents and can also diminish the air quality, all of which is really both diminishing the ability to function effectively as a business location and also just the general quality of life in the county. The fourth theme that emerged out of the last meeting was the hope for rural and open space preservation. And so a couple of the issues of concern here include, one is the higher than average cost of farmland in Fauquier County. And so according to the Census of Agriculture, the average value of an acre of farmland in Fauquier County has increased significantly in value in recent years and is now much higher than both the state average and than even some of the neighboring counties, such as Culpeper. And this cost is not only a significant barrier to new farmers who may be interested in acquiring land in order to begin their operations, but it may also be a discouragement to existing farmers to continue their operations and rather encourage them to sell their land either to developers or private landowners, whoever it may be. Another potential concern for rural and open space preservation is an increase of pressure for non-agricultural commercial uses in rural areas. And so in recent years, the county has seen a growing interest in commercial developments on rural lands. And this is primarily due to the fact that the cost of that land is significantly less often than what it would cost within the service districts themselves. And at the present time, the county lacks a strong definition of what an appropriate commercial or industrial use in rural areas may be. And so without this, this kind of benchmark or this framework, you have the potential either of restricting the growth or also potentially having some kind of unmanaged growth for a period until that definition comes out. And then the last major theme that we're going to touch on and review is this desire to see a strong agricultural economy. And so one of the potential obstacles within this area is the lack of farmers and the lack of farm labor. And so if you, again, look at the data from the agricultural census, what you'll see is that the farmers in Fauquier County are growing older. 37%, over a third, are over the age of 65, and only 11% are under the age of 45. And additionally, the primary farmers have reported difficulty finding necessary farm labor. And the fact is that this is usually labor that's physically demanding, it requires long hours, has relatively low pay, and often is only seasonally available. And those two forces together makes it very difficult to maintain some of these agricultural operations. Another issue is the lack of infrastructure for value-added agricultural processing. And so data suggests that less than 20% of the value of food that you're going to purchase in a store actually comes from the value of the product being produced by the farm. The rest of it's coming through processing, such as, again, processing and packaging and marketing and selling the goods. And so what this means is that due to the fact that Fauquier County has limited agricultural processing centers, the county is losing potentially tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of agricultural value. That basically they're sending raw materials to other places. Those places are adding that value and then acquiring it after it's sold. And then final obstacle within this is the limited local food promotion and access to local markets. So a recent study of the local agriculture in the region indicated that within the Rappahannock-Rapidan region, which is Culpeper County and the counties surrounding it, including Fauquier, within this region, over 93% of the food purchased is coming from outside of the region, even though it is a very agriculturally oriented area. And this is especially significant due to the fact, or when you consider the fact, that within Fauquier County, only 24% of the farmers are reporting net income gains in 2012, in the last census. And the average farm is losing net income of over $15,000. And so there are many issues that need to be addressed within that concern, but if these local farmers are able to reconnect to the local markets and to have more of access to that local food production, then that could be a major stimulus to these local farms. And so before we break out into group sessions, we also wanted to briefly talk about the survey results that have been gathered on the project website so far. And so people have been asked what they think the three most important challenges are to achieving Fauquier County's vision. And the five that have come out on top so far include the lack of local job growth and employment. Secondly, the development pressure from Northern Virginia. Third, changing agriculture and the loss of farmland. Fourth, controlling the location and the form of developments. And fifth is, again, catering to or matching the desires of the millennial generation.
Let's talk about opportunities that these will be on the same general topic areas as your obstacles. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. This is some that we brainstormed as staff and consultant team. But first of all, in the issue of managed growth and concentrated development, it's important to recognize the county's successful growth management strategy. When you look at where people live, I got to tell you, Fauquier County is the envy of a lot of places that are trying to manage growth throughout the country. You have over half your population in 8% of the land area in your towns and service districts. And when you look at where growth has been happening, just in the high growth years of 2000 to 2010, 91% of the growth happened in towns and service districts, and less than 9% in the rural areas. So the county is living its vision of managed focused growth in the service districts. And that certainly can be seen as an opportunity, the maintenance of that policy direction in the future. Secondly, there is, depending on how you look at it, there is sufficient land area within the towns and service districts to accommodate population. So this goes in relation to that one obstacle of maybe we're reaching some limits in the coming years. It depends on how you look at it. What's shown here is three different density scenarios, three different ways of populating the service districts. On the left is the current full build, in other words, the current density applied to all the service areas would accommodate a population of 59,000 additional people. In the middle, though, is if you looked at the density of the service districts and increased it to the density of just the town of the Plains, or the village of the Plains, that would accommodate 86,000 more people. And on the right is what if the density of the service districts, at full build-out, keep in mind, was the density of the town of Warrenton. That would accommodate 134,000 people. No one's suggesting that we do one or the other, but it's just a way of looking at how the growth could be accommodated in the service district on a pure land area basis. This is not looking at infrastructure. And the slide that was shown earlier about capacity had a lot to do with the infrastructure. But if the infrastructure can be accommodated, and of course this would need infrastructure enhancements, at least it's an opportunity that we can have sufficient capacity for future growth. So one thing that just for useful point of reference. On the vibrant towns and villages theme, there's certainly an ability to offer a unique setting in the DC metro area. You know, when you look from a plane, there's a difference in Fauquier County because of this legacy of managed growth. there is this green belt, this area of green that's in contrast to the area gray as you get closer to DC. This is an asset that will continue to grow with time. As the other area gets more gray, more built out, the value of this policy initiative that the county has pursued for decades will continue to grow. And it is a function of policy. It's not just the market, it's not just development patterns, there's definite policy direction, and that can be looked at as an opportunity going into the future. On the same theme, there's increasing federal and state funding for transportation alternatives. Some of the discussion about we need more connectivity, we need more options to single occupancy vehicles, things like safe routes to school, transportation alternatives. I heard the comment that there's actually everything that was scored in the last round of transportation scoring at the state for funding that was transit or enhancements for bike and pedestrian actually did very well. There is money for that. There aren't enough people applying projects for that, is what I've heard. So that's an opportunity. If we can get more projects in front of the people with the money, they can provide more funding for it. On the same theme, talking about the groundwater, with the county being dependent on groundwater as its drinking water resource, there's certainly a lot of technology, a lot of emerging low-impact development techniques for protecting the quality of groundwater. So things like rain gardens, pavement that actually drinks in water, bioswales that help filter the pollutants, also increase the amount of groundwater you have and also help make it cleaner. So that's an opportunity for the future. Now, on the theme of expanding business and employment opportunities, there's certainly the value of having Lord Fairfax Community College in the community. More than 7,000 students, 75 programs. There's a growing, increasing collaboration with the county, with the business community. There's a joint economic development, workforce development officer that's being hired by the county and the college that is going to increase some of those workforce development opportunities. That was listed as one of the obstacles to getting the 21st century workforce in the county, getting a better economy, better employers. So this is a definite opportunity for the future. Also, keep in mind there's a proximity to these major freight routes and facilities. You know, Fauquier County is surrounded by things like 66, 29, 17, 211 that are major freight routes. It has the Warrenton Fauquier Airport in the county. 66, 29, 17, 211 are in the county, and then it's surrounded by 81 and 95, the inland port and the airport. And this is important because you don't just have to grow rooftops to grow the economy. You have these opportunities for businesses in and around the county through these kind of freight facilities and economic attractors to grow the tax base without just growing population. That can be seen as an opportunity. Nearby access to VRE rail service. Right now, it stops about 6 miles from the county line, but there's a future line extension to Haymarket that is under study. Why is this important? This is Virginia Railway Express, of course. It's important because this can relieve traffic on some of the major corridors, particularly 29. It gives the opportunity for people that just go in 1 or 2 or 3 days a week into the core to take trains and not have to go on, load the traffic on the major highways. On rural and open space preservation, the county has a great legacy of open space preservation, rural agricultural preservation. These new kind of trends in tourism, whether it's nature-based tourism, heritage tourism, agritourism, obviously the wineries and the equine industry already tapping into that. But this is a real opportunity for a sustainable form of income for the agricultural community, but also helps kind of reinforce the value of preserving that rural open space with tourists and with county residents. And then the advocacy that is happening has already happened in this area, both at the regional, Rappahannock-Rapidan Regional Commission through their Food System Council, the county's Agricultural Development Office and Department, regional food system plans and farm support programs. The continuation, the expansion of these, certainly an opportunity for bringing more of those kind of local food and local products economy to the area. And then finally, proximity to large food markets, going hand in hand with this increasing trend of appreciation of buying local foods and products. So this is a chart that says the direct-to-consumer sales from farms are growing faster than all other agricultural sales. You can see from 97 to 2012, more than a doubling. And then when you think of the size of the food expenditure budget in the Washington, D.C. area, $14 billion, local food sales nationally are only about 1% of that area, and yet they're the highest growing trend. So it's something that's really taken off in the Piedmont region, it's taking off in this region. That can be a real opportunity for, again, a sustainable economy and bringing some of the dollars locally rather than exporting. So these are just some kind of opportunities that we brainstormed. I'm sure you have some others. Before we turn it back to you, I want to talk about some survey results. Again, remember we asked in the survey, what are opportunities? And then we asked you to match opportunities to obstacles. So we asked the top 3 opportunities for achieving the county's vision. Here's the top 5 that were responses. Telework through improved broadband surface was number 1, not surprisingly. Focusing growth in service districts, towns, and villages, number 2. Business startups and local job growth, number 3. Protection of rural character and open space, 4. And investing in infrastructure to create great places and walkable communities, number 5. So great kind of correlation with the vision and achieving the vision as the top 5 opportunities. And then we asked this exercise of matching opportunities with challenges or obstacles. And you can see the obstacles in red, the opportunities in green. And just, I'm not going to read these, but just look at the pattern there of how you deal with aging population through more transportation choices, walkable communities. You deal with a commuting burden with focusing development, better internet and cell service, broadband. You deal with the kind of form of growth and location of growth with reinforcing this investment in infrastructure and growth policy in the service districts. So it's a great matching of opportunities to obstacles. And what we want to do now is ask you, what are the most important opportunities that you see that we should be focusing on in the future?